Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it is Wednesday, so we finally get that long-awaited speech from Chairman Powell. I was concerned that we wouldn't have a lot of activity ahead of that, but we did okay yesterday, and yesterday was a really interesting day. Did kind of have a little burst of activity after the stream ended, but then it kind of died down, so that was okay. I'm still, especially because it's summer, I'm really reluctant to take trades. So, but maybe today we'll get something. Let's come over to the charts here real quick. So, here you got ZN, pretty decent rise yesterday, but with that getting retraced overnight and the treasuries tilted to the downside this morning. S&P 500 still with a slight downside bias, but like yesterday, they had some good selling in it. Excuse me. Some good selling, and they clawed it all back again. So, and you got oil over here. Oil, there's some real global growth concerns, and you're seeing that more so in oil than in other assets. But I would say that overall it's still kind of middling around ever since all that drama from the Saudis and so on and so forth. Gold and silver getting hurt again this morning, not performing very well and not recovering when the treasuries are recovering either, by the way. So gold just looks like a disaster right now. And this is very similar to what happened, like in 2021. Anyway, we got copper. Copper's doing okay, but not very good this morning. Getting hammered this morning, actually, pretty hard. Oh, by the way, there was some inflation data from the UK. It wasn't good, so that's one of the things I think kind of pushing some of this, and it could be hurting copper. Bitcoin on a big run yesterday. There was the announcement of a new exchange. With a couple of big industry names in there. I think Citadel was in there, for instance. I'm a little bit skeptical about the actual how big this particular exchange actually is, because it doesn't sound like this is an exchange for you and me. This is an exchange for your broker to work with, so that they can turn Bitcoin into Forex trading, right? They'll trade against you, and then they'll, balance out their trades over this exchange. Because one of the key things about this new exchange is that it doesn't handle the custody stuff. Typically you have to give the exchange custody of your coins. This one, it doesn't do that. Instead, you're giving custody to Fidelity, and then Fidelity trades on that exchange for you. Something like that. So, but in terms of sentiment and things like that, yep, super positive, good move up, and it looks like it's even extending this morning. And then the dollar about where it was. Okay, so here we getting 6:30 news. What did we have? Just Canadian retail sales, which were better than expected. So it's going to cause a little bit of selling in the treasuries. But really the big one today is that we've got Chairman Powell is speaking at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Whoa, that is not what I expected. So I said, oh yeah, okay, retail sales is going to sell a little bit, and then look at the pushback. Wowzer. Oh, Fed's Powell, the recent bank failures and resulting financial stress have highlighted the importance of having appropriate rules and supervisory practices for banks this size. Are they? So am I? Am I behind here? Are we getting Powell's opening statement early? That must be what that is them trying to parse the comments. Reducing inflation is likely to require a period of below trend growth, some softening of labor market conditions. So that initial pop coming back, that's got to be what that pop was. And not related to the CPI. Anyways. I think I'm still giddy about this new microphone. I like the way it sounds when I'm just speaking into it and I can hear it over the monitor. Probably, you know, I probably could make it a little hotter. I'm gonna do that. Because we could get, oh, I don't know. Let's see here. How about that? Oh, 7's probably a little bit too much. About 4. Would like it to be like peaking at 6. How about that? Is that too loud for you guys? You let me know. That's too loud. So, inside liquidity a little bit flighty here. Well, I didn't. Could you provide me where you read the news? Well, so I have a news squawk. I use Financial Juice Pro. You can look in the video description. I have an affiliate link with them. It's about $100 a month if you want the live service, but you can also go there and you can get for free delayed services by delayed like 5-10 seconds, something like that. Totally worth it. Then I also use TweetDeck, so you can get all of the tweets live through TweetDeck. I'm not using the new one, by the way. I have some issues with the new one. It seems like the old TweetDeck updates faster and is more responsive and stuff. So the headlines that I was reading to you there was coming primarily from Twitter. Okay, so yes, that was correct. The Powell's speech was released by the Federal Reserve before he testifies before Congress. And it looks like the market did make some moves off of his initial comments, but kind of settled back down. So I don't know if they're reading too much into it. Thanks a lot. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, and I'm glad that you found it useful. Let's see here. So Mohammed A. El Arian is commenting on the breaking news that Powell expects more Fed rate hikes ahead as inflation fight has a, quote, long way to go. El Arian says, and yet the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged at their policy meeting a week ago, another sign of a muddled middle policy stance I wrote about in the Financial Times 10 days ago. Hey, Meishan, how's it going? Fed swaps little changed price in about 21 basis points of July hike. Seems about right. Kind of interesting. The liquidity did kind of disappear here a bit. Do you see here you look at the bottom middle here, you can see there was the Canadian news, and then the spike up was the Chairman Powell's statement being released, and then you get the oscillations afterwards. But the oscillations afterwards are a little bit wider than you sometimes get in the treasuries. So it looks like the market makers are being a little bit more careful here than they usually are. When I look at the DOM, the liquidity on the inside is okay, but you can see that they're, when they tick up and down, it's on very little volume. So most of the orders are pulling. Nick Timmeros tweeting here. Not quite as clean as the new/old FOMC statements, but this looks at how last week's opening statement differs from today's opening statement. There are lots of similarities. With inflation remaining well above our longer-term goal of 2% and with labor conditions remaining tight, the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, hold on here, it's too small for me to read. The FOMC has significantly tightened the stance of monetary policy. We have raised our policy interest rate by 5 percentage points since early last year and have continued to reduce our securities holdings at a brisk pace. Before concluding, let me briefly address the condition of the banking sector. The U.S. banking system is sound and resilient, as detailed in the box on financial stability in the June Monetary Policy Report. The Federal Reserve, together with the Treasury Department and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, took decisive action in March to protect the U.S. economy and to strengthen the public confidence in our banking system. With recent banking failures, including the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and the resulting banking stress, have highlighted the importance of ensuring we have the appropriate rules and supervisory practices for banks of this size. We are committed to addressing these vulnerabilities to make for a stronger and more resilient banking system. So that's basically like the new stuff that was in his comments. So yeah, it kind of seems like not a whole lot interesting in his opening statement. So I could see how the market would maybe read it as initially dovish, and then come back. It's kind of interesting, the headlines and so forth, because the headline coming out, like here's Reuters, their lead is Fed's Powell in testimony says inflation fight has a long way to go, right? That headline would be hawkish, but the market read the overall speech as dovish. Did I already say good morning to Uzi? I don't think I actually said good morning. I did see him. I did see you there, though. Oh, you were short oil? I tell you what, oil continues to surprise. I think, you know, it's done some pretty crazy moves both ways, although mostly to the downside, huh? So here's an interesting topic I'm coming across here on Reddit. Can you successfully scalp MES? When I trade Thinkorswim with TD, which has 225 futures transaction fee with 1 or 2 other fees for commission, you're looking at -5 of fees round trip. So when trading the MES, you're basically 4 ticks in the hole when you open a position, which brings me to my ultimate question. Does anyone successfully scalp with MES? I find trade where I have a good setup with 1 to 1.5 risk reward. I can't take it because with fees, that same setup is actually a 2 to 0.5 reward. Am I missing something? People do not scalp with MES and just stick to ES where the fees have a minuscule effect. Well, number one, most people do not use a broker that has such huge fees. Yeah, that's the first comment on there. I think, though, like, I'm not going to post on this thread because what I'm going to say is maybe is not directly related to what he was really getting at in his post, but ES is an advanced instrument, in my opinion. It is really hard to trade. There is a lot of randomness in the S&P 500. I think to really be effective with equity index futures, you have to have a relatively larger account than most retail traders are doing. You know, most retail traders are like way over leveraged. They're trading ES. So, you know, like you trading one MES contract on a prop account could maybe be considered over leveraged to some extent. Definitely one ES is. I think I see a lot of people passing combines with one ES contract. Because, like, seriously, you just have to catch one big strong move and that's $1,000, right? It moves so much now these days. It didn't used to be that way, but it is now because they don't change the size of the instrument. So I saw another thread I wanted to talk about this morning. Probably why I don't feel like I got ready very quickly this morning. I think it was because I was thinking about this thread. Mods, please verify accounts. The sub is being used by businesses to create fake threads and push subscriptions for prop firms. Notice a lot more funded trader posts here that are for A Fund and some other ones. I've never heard of them. The typical OP account start a thread by asking a question to capture attention and then responds to comments touting futures accounts are great, or funded accounts are great, etc. A short DD in the bio are new accounts linked to new Twitters that only post marketing material to funded accounts. Coincidentally, a lot of these prop firms have been making YouTube shorts, having interviews with Lambo traders, girls dressed to the live stream. It's all marketing. The psychology and everything is old, just all repackaged to get you to sign up for a funded account. New traders will be risking more to hit the challenge and then blow up the account shortly. There's a lot of no payout clauses and also restrictions. You see things like risk $50 a trade with a $400,000 account. No, that wouldn't make any sense. You'll also see trader content creators who might know how to trade and work with a white label prop fund product explain how they get funded. If you need to risk money, risk your own money. That's the number one rule of trading. Is it the number one rule of trading? I do think that you're better off risking your own money, but Trade the way you want to trade, grow and learn through honing your practice. Yes, it feels great to manage $400,000, but ask yourself, do you really know how to manage? If you can't manage a $1,000, $2,000 account, are you begging for size, numbers, more action? That's the client they need. And just like a casino, thank you for your stay. You can come challenge again. So I generally agree with his assessment, but on the prop firms, I don't like them. I think that they have some use cases, but it's not what most retail traders should be doing. And I'm constantly bothered by the amount of power that they have in the retail trading community. They push retail traders towards performance metrics that are harmful to them, right? Okay, but the thing that was interesting to me was we are completely aware of this and we're almost done implementing a new verification system. We'll utilize integration with K-Info that will give you a flare here, and the auto mod will post the user's stats. As you can't fake your P&L with them, it will give visibility and trust to users who want to use their P&L. There will be no posting P&Ls without it. Well, so first of all, the best way to prove something is with empirical evidence, not with anecdotal trading results. But I'm not familiar with this K-Info thing very much, so I wanted to come in and look at this. So, oh, look, they have education. Cool. So, wait. So you want me to give all of my trading data to some unknown company that could potentially use that information and sell it to other people and use it against me? Oh yeah, and they have education that I can buy. Yeah, $99 a month. Cool. So you're gonna cut out one set of player in the industry, the prop firms, and you're gonna go and have the sub endorse another one. Cool. All right, but my question is, which brokers does K-Info support? Supports most popular U.S. brokers used by day traders. For a complete view, see the list in the app or link your broker. Supported brokers: TD Ameritrade, Trade Zero, Interactive Brokers, Cobra, Guardian, Centerpoint, Webull, Apex, E-Trade, TradeStation, Speed Trader, Lightspeed. Okay, so they don't have the majority of futures traders. Right. I'm concerned that when you come in and you try and verify trading, or you post statistics and you do so in an ineffective way, that you might actually be causing more harm than good. Like, especially since I really think the standard should be 5 years. Like, if somebody's showing you trading results from a strategy and it's less than 5 years, then I don't think it really means anything. And, I have been trading for 5 years, but for the first bit of that, it was kind of on and off, performance. So it's only been the last 2 years, and then really the last year where I really feel like I've dialed in the kind of style of trading that I've been advocating. And I don't use, and even if I had the performance metrics, I wouldn't use the performance metrics to promote the idea, because I believe that the ideas are backed by empirical evidence, right? 5 years. It's so crazy to me that in a world where we measure performance on a 5 to 10 year time frame, that people like focus on like 1 month, 1 year, like we're just, one of the biggest problems retail traders have is they're not thinking long term enough. Because look, if you trade 5 years and then you blow the account at the end of it, did you really? In my opinion, all you did was you just wasted 5 years. Right? But hey, if you come around and you struggle for 5 years, but then eventually you figure it out and you trade and make money for 30, 40 years, that's a different story, right? Treasuries have been ranging for a long time. Well, so we did get Powell's opening testimony. I think that you're likely to see the treasuries continue to be a little bit iffy today, right? As long as Powell is going to be testifying, traders kind of hold back on business, essentially. Right? Like they're at their desks, they're watching, they're paying attention to what's going on, but they're not like calling up their clients and being like, oh, okay, here I can do this, and like they're waiting. And I think you're probably gonna see a lot of that this week. I mean, I think you're gonna see a lot of that. We're in the summer, right? So no, well, I wouldn't really say I guess I can kind of understand what you mean by it's been ranging the past, like, what, 15 days? I mean, so we have not been... Okay, let me start over. I think that you've been spoiled a little bit too much, Mr. M. Because this right here was a huge trend. This right here was a huge trend. This was a huge trend. Okay, but like when you go back... like action like this kind of like back and forth is actually pretty standard. This is actually pretty standard for treasuries. And we are still on a slight downtrend. It's just not super strong. So, and I wouldn't come in and look at like, the amount of time that it's been in a low volatility or whatever the deal is. I mean, when you look at the actual... well, I don't know. I was going to say when you look at the range of the candles, they're actually fairly thick candles, but relatively speaking, if we were to go back way, way further. Okay, so when you go back way, way further, look at the ATR now, right? ATR is still like double what it has been historically. But yeah. It's lower volatility compared to the recent history. But anyways, as I was saying, I wouldn't say like, oh, it's been in there for too long, so that must mean that we're ready to break out, Oh, is Dren's warrant on proper numbers? Well, why does that matter? Orders move markets, right? I think we kind of have this idea in the trading community that like certain moves matter more than others. Like if it was just on technicals, then the move doesn't matter, for instance, right? But the evidence that we have kind of suggests that that's too simple of a way of looking at it. That all orders have impact and that their impact are permanent, right? And the real question is, what is going to drive future orders, right? What do we have that's going to drive future orders? Well, liquidity is coming out, okay? But money is coming out. That would be like general selling across the board, but it's summer. We got Powell speaking. Do we have any other big numbers later this week? I don't think we have anything too big tomorrow, do we? Unemployment claims, of course. Existing home sales. That's something. We are getting a little bit of an uptrend, although I would say I'm a little bit... Well, let's not make a conclusion yet. Kind of coming back to, I'm not quite sure why we would have buying today, but whatever. Got something stuck in my teeth. Hold on a second. Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that I'm expecting the flows to still be somewhat subdued today. Might get a trend. It seems like the market may be interpreting Powell's speech as dovish. There's about 5,000 contracts long on this move up to the highs. But the liquidity still seems really, like it seems to tick really easy. So that move up might, you may be getting more movement than typical because of the liquidity, essentially. I think treasuries would buy till July hike. Why do you say that? Like, the thing that I've found a little odd about this market is that I feel like we've come into a period of great uncertainty. I mean, it's been really uncertain since COVID in general, but it's really uncertain right now. Like, I wasn't 100% sure until a week ahead when the futures became really, really certain that they were actually going to pause in June, right? And it kind of shifted towards they'll hike in July really quickly. Right. That's quite an extreme move for the treasuries. But sitting and watching it didn't seem like such a big deal, There were moves, of course, but they were like really quick, isolated moves. And then I was like, oh, okay. Guess they are going to do it. But there's not the same kind of like back and forth battle over it like there usually is. It's the market has gone into a summer market. I don't know. So, some of that is kind of like very much like based on perceptions, right? Because last week we definitely had a lot of activity. The week before that, I felt like there was a lot of activity. But this week, it's been quiet. You think that? You don't think that they're going to hike in July? I mean, you might be right. So, like, I think the market seems really certain that they're going to hike in July, right? But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they hike in July. And then that's the end, right? That's the end. The issue with that scenario is just what future orders does that drive? I don't see that driving orders this week, right? Question is, what's going to drive the orders right now? There's buying. There has been some buying. What's driving that here? I'm not quite sure. I think it may be a speculative trade, though. And there has been a decent amount of pushback now against it, so. So let me come over here. Let's check the news a little bit again. Let's see. Underwater noises detected in search for missing Titanic submersible. Cool. hope to get fills at 05 and 05 on the offer. Oh, you should have gotten fills. Or to go short. Maybe you meant short. Like, this flow is reversing already. The market has slid in overnight trading ahead of Chair Powell's monetary policy testimony to Congress. According to the just released prepared remarks, he will tell lawmakers on Wednesday that there is still a long way to go to cool inflation and interest rates are expected to rise further this year, reiterating his comments from last week. Inflation pressures continue to run high, and the process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go, Powell's prepared remarks state. Nearly all officials expect that it will be appropriate to raise interest rates somewhat further by the end of the year. Reducing inflation will likely require slower economic growth and some softening of labor market conditions. The economy is facing headwinds from tighter credit conditions for households and businesses, which are likely to weigh on economic activity, hiring, and inflation, though the extent to which remains uncertain. The focus is on whether the July meeting is truly live and if the Fed dot plot of 2 more hikes is a true base case, depending on the data, or doom-mongering on inflation in an effort to ensure no premature easing in financial conditions, said Tapas Strickland, head of market economics at NAB. Powell will appear before the House Financial Services Committee at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and then the Senate Banking Committee on Thursday. Inflation is the key focus of his prepared remarks. And they have their remarks below. See, that's where I'm coming down still, like, I don't see anything dovish in his comments. But the long flows have dominated since his remarks were released, right? Still got something stuck in my teeth, but I think I'm gonna bear with it. But if I'm acting weird, that's why. If I'm acting weird, that's why. You know what something is more interesting to talk about? What's something that we really should talk about, but like, I don't know if I really have anything to say about it. What the F is up with gold? What is up with gold? Like, look at it. It's still selling. It's still selling here. The Treasury's not moving. Treasury's not moving. I guess the dollar is rising a little bit here. I should switch that to Bitcoin, by the way. Still, what is driving? Silver is down 1.46%, the biggest loser on my board this morning. Corn, the biggest winner at 2.87, by the way. Oh, geez. In that thread we were talking about earlier about the prop firms, somebody says a lot of prop firms offer certificates when you pass or get a payout. That should be enough to verify. No. Because a lot of people will come in and get a payout and then blow the account. Anyways, okay, so we did have some downward pressure. It looks like the buying may be coming back. I'm having a hard time judging this one because it does not seem like your typical meta order. it could be the case though that they're being forced to be a little bit more aggressive than you normally would because of the way that the liquidity keeps pulling. Mickey Mouse certificates. Again, we are working in an industry where performance is measured on a 5 to 10 year time frame. Even if you're day trading, guys. Like it's easy to get discouraged and feel like you're not getting the results that you want because the sort of things we're talking about are measured on 5 to 10 year time frame, right? Come in, work your hardest for 5 years, then assess. Right? Instead, though, everybody's concerned about who did the best in the last month and trying to duplicate that. And what that ends up doing is it almost always drives you towards boom and bust kind of strategies where you will do really well for like a month and then you'll blow the account next week. I don't know what if it's even possible to get the larger trading community to understand this and you know, make that the standard, but that's the world we live in. Okay, so there was a little bit of wrangling there, but it looks like that they're going to settle here at 0.3.5. No, another down tick. That one on not very much volume. Yokes get too greedy. Maybe. I mean, ultimately, I don't think that most people are given the information that they really need to even stand a chance, you know? I don't know, like maybe it's a giant conspiracy. I don't actually think it's a giant conspiracy. I think that it's just the way that things tend to go, right? Like the average person can barely even think about what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone what is going to happen to them 5 to 10 years from now, right? Like really think about that for your trading. Like think about your trading right now, or your trading over the past year. And if that just continues at that pace for the next 5 to 10 years, where is that going to put you in 5 to 10 years? Right? I think that most traders, they come in and they have a teeny tiny account, right? And they're trying to trade as small as they can, but even then they're over leveraged, and then they blow the account and they can't justify trading it anymore, right? So you don't have a 5 to 10 year plan, right? You have a 6-month YOLO. And right, but once you come back and you say to yourself, you know, this is an effort that will take me 5 to 10 years to really realize the progress that I want to have, right? How does that change what you're going to do, right? Because that's all you can do is ask yourself every day, are my actions today in line with my long-term goals? Well, if you're trading so large that you blow the account and you're not going to be able to continue to trade after that, then probably is not in line with the 5 to 10 year goal of improving your trading, right? Now, if you have the income to be able to continue to refund the account over and over, then sure. But I would just warn you, like, how many thousands of dollars are you going to put into it before you figure it out, right? Most companies, I think it's up to 80% die within the first year. Yeah. Although I think with the businesses, there's a lot of other problems. We live in an age when most want it all quick. Well, I think everybody's always wanted it all quick, right? But yeah, I mean, the internet makes it worse, though, right? Because again, we know that there is empirical information out there about trading and even about short-term trading, that could potentially be useful to a retail trader, and retail traders ignore it. Retail traders ignore it in favor of whatever the most popular YouTube is hawking that month. I'm sure it may just so happen at some point that we become the popular YouTuber, and then maybe people get that empirical information. That's kind of my hope. I think that it's probably overly optimistic. Like if I'm really honest, I don't think that it would have the impact that I would want, right? I would hope that the YouTube channel does well, that these concepts that are backed by empirical evidence become more popular, and then ever after that, every time that people start hawking this other stuff, retail traders are skeptical and they'll say, "Where's the empirical evidence that you have to back these ideas up?" And then they won't be so vulnerable to this kind of BS grifting that the community is constantly subjected to. But I bet what would probably happen instead is the channel would have a period of success and then fizzle out, and everybody would forget about it, and it wouldn't have any kind of long-term impact on the philosophy of traders. Anyways, you are going to be streaming for the next 40 years, so definitely we're going to become the best trader. I really get deeply skeptical of any activity that I see online now, especially Reddit. Like I don't believe any of it. So like this guy was complaining about prop firms. That it's like, it seems to me like somebody's coming in asking a question that they know will generate activity, and then in all of the comments they try and push prop firms. Okay, yeah, I've seen that. But what I see more often is, "Oh, hey, what is your favorite YouTuber?" And then you get all of these comments about YouTubers I've never heard of before. And I'm pretty sure that these people are going and creating the thread about who's your favorite YouTuber just so that some other organized poster can post about, the YouTuber that they intended on boosting. Right? And I'm not sure how organic any of that stuff is. I never see any of you guys in those threads. I guess most of you guys don't spend time on Reddit. I don't know. But I never get mentioned in those threads. I've been doing this longer than anybody else, essentially, at this point. Right? There's a couple of guys that are popular right now that have been doing it as long. But essentially, we've been doing this as long as it's been possible to do it, practically. Right? We don't get mentioned. Hell no, I prefer my hobby of eating powdered glass. My uncle, he has this rock garden. It's like an inside rock garden. It's just this little box like this big. And he has powdered glass in it, like a glass that has been ground really, really fine. And it is so cool to touch that stuff. It just feels so soft. I don't think I would eat it, though. Don't think I would eat it. Do you think they're gonna find this submersible? I keep seeing news story that they heard noises. That's gonna be interesting. It's in some of these things like the inelastic markets hypothesis and stuff. It's inevitable that those concepts will become more widespread. It's just a question of, will retail traders take advantage of it? I think probably not. Because the reality is that we have almost 30, almost 40 years now of this kind of empirical data that retail traders have been ignoring. It'll be crazy if they save them like mere hours before they run out of air. I thought I had a rough day yesterday until I heard about this sub. Well, no, so the story was that the Canadian aircraft that are kind of searching in the area and using sonar or something are able to hear a noise that apparently they're at the bottom of the sea, like clanging on the side of the submarine to make the sound so that they can hear it. And they'll do it every couple of hours or something. And so they adjusted the area that they were searching for based on that. So that kind of suggests that they're still there. They're fart turb. Yeah, I don't know. So, like, it is definitely becoming the story that's, like, capturing the media attention, isn't it? But what happens if they don't save them? And here's the other thing, is the twist that we have yet to see is when some brilliant narcissistic billionaire comes in and tries to save the day and steal the show, and then, you know, like what happened with those kids, right? And Elon Musk and all that whole drama. It seems like every time that we have one of these sorts of situations now, that some story like that develops from it. It's not even that, no. But they were going down to look at the Titanic, and I guess they got lost or they got sucked down there. Apparently, this submersible has gotten stuck before, so. I should stop playing with this Rubik's Cube. It's making too much noise. Oh, where's my fidget cube? I have my original kickstarted fidget cube. Where did it go? I don't know. I don't have my stress ball over here either, so. Fart tube can last for 92 hours? Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess if they die, they'll definitely be forgotten. To some extent. And then, 3 years from now, CNN will have a documentary about it. How we never found them. Just like that freaking airplane. Oh my gosh, you remember the freaking airplane thing, man? That is one of those news stories that just will always perplex me. That CNN was so obsessed with this flight that disappeared from China. If you read about the sub, it was not even rated for those depths. So if they are at the depth of the Titanic, they have less than 92 hours. It was an accident waiting to happen. Oh, I had seen the headlines on that, but I hadn't read the stories to know the details. But I had seen that they were doing something kind of dumb, and that the submersible had problems before, essentially. The one CNN said could have been sucked. Did they really say it could have been sucked into a plane? No, they did not. Really? Oh my gosh. I wish I could see your links, D. Here, hold on. You've been around long enough, I trust you. Now you should be able to post the link. I kind of, you know, we need to get back to the everybody's a moderator kind of so that everybody can post links in chat. Everybody except for Salim, because I don't trust him. No. D, post it again. It doesn't show us the link. Like YouTube makes you think that we see the link, but it doesn't send that message to us. So post it again. Now that you have the permission, we should be able to see the link. Trying. Oh, it's in Discord? Okay. Holy crap, that's a long... Why is the... Oh, because he added the reference URL bit to the end of it, which is like terribly long. Okay. This short clip will help you understand why the Titanic mini-sub is missing and why this was an accident waiting to happen. Oh. So this is a journalist using the submersible before the thing happened. Oh, dude, I didn't even think about that. Okay, so they just they were just saying this submersible is the only 5-person sub in the world that can go to the depths of the Titanic. And then they said it's also the only submersible with a toilet. And I'm just realizing now that like these guys, could you hold, how long have they been down there for now? Could you hold it for 3 days? Oh, man. Oh, man. Can you believe that? That's so not only are they sitting down there at the bottom of the ocean, no way up, banging on the sides of the thing, hoping that some sonar or something hears them, but they're probably sitting in their own excrement. Like smelling it the whole time. Oh my gosh. Seth is sexy and his wife is a lucky woman, you betcha. I don't know if she would put it that way, but we have fun though, we have fun. And listen to the CEO. Oh yeah, okay, so let's keep watching it. We got these from Camper World. Okay, yeah, that is a little crazy. Oh my gosh. You know what though? If I was a billionaire, that's exactly the sort of thing that I would end up, you know, getting myself stuck up in. It's like, well, I know it's a risk, but you know, we're trailblazing and stuff. It's okay. And then you die at the bottom of the ocean. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine how crazy of a story it's going to be, though, if they find them and they're alive? Oh, man. That could be so crazy. Wow, JP Morgan Chase says the U.S. Virgin Islands gave Jeffrey Epstein more than $300 million in tax incentives and waived sex offender monitoring requirements. You know, JP Morgan, like, they settled that court case. Like, you started to get negative headlines come out about it. Like, that there was the initial ones, but then, like, a couple of weeks later, they really started hitting on it, and Zero Hedge was pushing it really hard. And so, like, JP Morgan, like, immediately settled it to shut it up, right? And I think it's only going to get worse. I think that story is only going to get worse because in order for Epstein to do what he was doing, there was widespread corruption everywhere. And it's a topic of such intense public interest that people are just going to keep thinking. Like, this is something that, like, 20 years from now, they'll make documentaries and people will be interested about. Just like they make, they make documentaries about, like, is this where Jimmy Hoffa was buried and stuff like that? It's exactly like that. That's funny. When did that clip? When was that clip, like, recorded? Was it just, like, shortly before it happened? Read the comments on that Twitter thread. Jens Danielson, 7% 1-star ratings on Amazon. Here are some reviews. Is it that good or bad odds when submerging 12K feet into the water? The connection between the dongle and the controller is sketchy and requires a clear path. Even when using the included extender for the dongle, I've been unable to get a secure connection. Controller constantly loses connection. Jeez. I just can't get over, man. Now I'm interested in this story. That's what it took to get me into the story, was poop, right? I just can't get over the thinking now that they've been sitting in there smelling their own poop for hours and hours and hours, days. And you're probably trying to hold it. Oh, man. Oh, man. See, if I was in that submersible, they would have killed me by now, right? They'd be like, "We're sorry, Seth, but for our own survival, we need to kill you." That's what they would do. Okay, so here's the S&P 500 going on here. The treasuries have turned down to the downside quite aggressively, I might add. I would say that in the end, the amount of delta on this in the ZN is about equal to that rise up we had towards the highs earlier, but it is much faster and more aggressive. And you can see that huge iceberg at 113.00 half as well. You think they're already dead? Dude, I'm missing out on a good move here. Right at the S&P 500 open is usually not the best time. Look at that big order. Is there a large single order in that? Let's see here. I can see 3,000 added about 30 seconds ago. I don't know why I didn't hear the sound, but it's declined a little bit. So this all gets me really like, I want to trade. but shenanigans like that means this is probably not the right point, right? Why do you think that they're already dead, Kulud? Come on, have some hope. I mean, they got to find the submersible itself one way or another, don't they? Or is that going to become a thing too? Like, they don't find the submersible, and so then people will end up doing, trips to try and find it 10 years from now. Oh my gosh. So you know what I did? So Joseph Wang, he moved over to his blog being a subscription service. I was like, okay, that's cool. I can get down on that, but it's like $20 a month. I was like, I don't know if what you're posting isn't giving me enough value to be worth $20 a month, man. Probably the right business decision for him, because probably there are enough people willing to do it for him to make money from it and everything. But like, I don't know, man. BS wants stops. Well, there was a lot more volatility on the open than there has been, wasn't there? Okay, the treasuries shot back. Oh yeah, okay. I don't know what's going on here in the treasury, but I think I better stay out of it. I haven't seen a swing like that in a while. Yeah, really strong move down, really strong pushback. There was pretty big cumulative deltas, and like, look, there was 7 at the 31. Okay, at 31, where that large order was. It took 7,500 to clear it. That's a relatively large iceberg. So it was a large order trying to get filled and chasing it that pushed us down. And it looks like they're kind of rebalancing, floating back up now that order is gone. Like, now that order is gone, you've got this vacuum and it gets sucked back up, right? They basically came back to the scene of the crime, because before that we were ranging in this between like 02 and 01. Even if you find them, it takes days to rescue. It's not like you fish them up with a hook. It's not. But I thought that they said that there's a button and that it's like an elevator and stuff. Like, it would take a few hours because of the pressure. You have to bring them up slowly, but would it take days to pull them up? I guess maybe you're right that it might take days, because it would, they would have to actually get a rope down to them to pull it up, and that might take some time. And you might not have the hardware and stuff to do that effectively. Yeah, they did say that it has a button inside, and the dude equated it to an elevator. Yeah. I don't know. What? So what would you do in a situation like that? Just sit back and sleep and try not to talk? I guess. That would be a really sad way to go. You know that the ocean floor is fitted with that. Yeah. But I'm saying you would need like a submersible to be able to go down there and like somehow securely attach to the thing. I don't, do they have all the hardware and stuff to do that out there? It's the question. It's kind of interesting to me, though, that they're having such a hard time finding them. Like, how did they get so far away from where they were supposed to be? You're supposed to drop those subs attached to a cable for this very reason. So, did they not do that? They weren't attached to a cable then? That's what I'm wondering. Thank you. So we're too late on this story. It's a good thing that this story is not relevant to the market, or we would be getting creamed, right? Oh man, because when I first heard the story, I was like, they'll find him, and it was no big deal. We heard about it afterwards. I'm not sure what to make of this trade, because clearly somebody wanted to sell it, but like, it looks like the market stepped up and filled them. So if it was like just some big seller and he's done, then I don't really have a trade here. But then at the same time, you have to wonder, why are they selling so much? Well, they were kind of doing it on the offer they did with an iceberg. It could be nothing. So I don't think that we should make too big of a deal of it. It is certainly one of the more interesting orders we've seen recently, though, isn't it? They definitely make ropes that long, but it's like, do they have one available, and how do you attach it to the sub? So many questions now. But that would be an awful way to go. So I was TikTok has started showing me clips of Chernobyl. Makes me want to go and watch the show again. I was like, let's watch Chernobyl. And my wife was like, oh yeah, I'm sure Asher and Ethan would love to watch that show. You don't buy 2 miles of rope at Home Depot, but you can definitely get it made for seafaring applications. There you go. Yes. Yeah. I mean, how much is on a spool of rope at Home Depot, though? You'll probably want like a metal cable too, right? Okay, they came back down quite quickly. So there is like a gaping hole here now, and even though they kind of got pushed up there, it's just like immediately sinking back into it. That makes me think that maybe I made a miscalculation there. No, I think I did the right thing. I mean, I am kind of wondering if like 3770 though wouldn't have been bad, because they came back a lot further than that, and so I thought, it's not no good. I'll try it as she goes, because they're definitely starting to hit it now, right? We do have to be careful about, they might try and make the move here and get stuck. In fact, they started going for 29.5 and it didn't clear, so I did not catch the edge as I intended. Anyways, thinking about those guys in the submersible sitting at the bottom of the ocean in their own excrement, that would be a terrible way to go. And I was watching Chernobyl, and there's this scene where like the guy is trying to get to the reactor room, and like he opens it up and he can like see down into the core, and there's the fire going on off of the core and everything. Like, I would just jump in. I would just jump in at that point. Because you already know you've had too much radiation. You're already a dead man. And the way that you die from radiation from something like that is just so horrific. I would rather just jump in. Imagine that scene in a decade if no one finds them. Oh, dude. Yeah, so if any of you guys end up, becoming a billionaire and doing an expedition to go and find these guys, and you find them, I would be really careful when you open it up. Like wear a hazmat suit, plug your nose, Yeah, it would be gross. I mean, when they open it up, it's gonna be gross. If they find them and save them, I would probably wear a hazmat suit when I open it up. Okay, I just how long have they actually been down there for though? How long have they actually been down there for? Hopefully none of them get God, come on, man. Oh man, since Sunday? Oh yeah, then they're totally dead. They're totally dead. Or they're close. They're either totally dead or real close, right? If a Twitter video is real, how could a billionaire get on a sub made this shitty? Well, I mean, that's exactly the thing here is you must not know very many billionaires. not that I know any either, but from what I've seen about these sorts of things, the super rich are not as hyper intelligent as we often think, right? You realize that the way that the economy rewards people is not really in line with what most of us think. It's really not in line with how most of us think that the economy rewards us. Like, one of the problems that I see among Gen Z in particular is that they think that the way it works is you work really hard and then you should be rewarded according to how hard you've worked. That's not how it works. Okay, because you could go and work super, super hard doing things in a way that's like really dumb and inefficient, right? So the economy really rewards supply and demand, right? And so it's entirely common that you get people with large sums of money that can make poor decisions in certain things. Especially when it comes to like doing risky things, right? Like that group of people probably more likely to get involved in risky things, like doing risky sports and stuff like that, because the risk taking is probably part of how they became so rich, right? They should be rewarded by how much the government can tax the working man for them. So here's a question for you. It seems to me that in the modern world that you have to have a relatively strong central government to really survive on the international stage. Like, you have to have a military. I mean, if all of a sudden one day the United States didn't have a military, right, there'd be some real problems in the world. Okay, so the federal government needs a certain amount of money. They used to get that money from tariffs and things like that. Then they changed things. There's the whole history behind an income tax. I'm not so sure that we're going to get rid of an income tax. Okay, but if we go along with that assumption, how much money does the government realistically need? As a percentage of GDP, how much money does the government realistically need? That's really the question. I think it should be is like, what is the optimum taxes as a percent of GDP? It's been around 17% through most of the history, right? But it oscillates around that, right? And that's going to be based on policy. Feasibly, well, anytime that they try and increase that number, it doesn't work. But feasibly, you might be able to like really reduce taxes and reduce the amount of tax receipts as a percentage of GDP, right? But can you actually do that? Like, it's too complicated of a thing to sort out. Like, what government expenditures are actually necessary or worthwhile, right? That's why there's such a problem, is because you're talking about a problem that's like impossible to solve anyways, because there's just too much stuff to factor in. and then you're putting it up to a vote, right? There needs to be something. There needs to be a mechanism like the market for taxes. You know what I mean? I don't know how you would do it, but there needs to be some way in which competition brings all of the information together in order to determine which government programs get funded and don't. I couldn't overcome fear no matter how rich I were as pertains to dropping yourself 2 miles underwater in a beer can. Yeah, I don't think I would do that either. I just don't see myself getting interested enough in that to be in that situation. But I could see myself getting into some other stupid kind of situation. Who knows what it would be? Maybe someday I'll do that. Maybe someday I'll die for a stupid reason. Now, you're talking about this. You're just gonna make me a hermit. Like, I should just stay in my house all the time. I feel like I stay in my house way too often since COVID. You know, I used to not spend very much time at home because I was always at the gym. But now that I don't go to the gym, I want to go to the gym more often. I'd like to start going on Saturdays again. Maybe soon we can. I think Asher is to the point where he can probably handle it. I think he's getting to the point where he can probably handle it with the phone. Because they're doing some great stuff over there at the gym. We've got 3 national champions right now. That's amazing. Trading Economics has a new charting feature that will load past key economic data onto your chart. And I found it has a dark mode too. Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. I've definitely used them before to look at certain like metrics and things like that, but I could do all kinds of outside risky stuff, but not something in a confined space under thousands of pounds of pressure with no way out. Yeah. So my father-in-law, he was a nuclear safety engineer. So basically, anytime that they needed to do maintenance in the nuclear power plants, they would have to put together a plan, and then he would like have to approve the plan that it's in line with all of the regulations that they have and that it's safe and all of that sort of stuff, right? So that's what he did. And so as a part of his job, he often found himself in like confined spaces. Apparently it wasn't just confined spaces, but like confined spaces where like if you moved a little bit too much the wrong direction, you could potentially expose yourself to radiation. Or if you did things wrong, you could potentially expose yourself to radiation. So like we have flight benefits. They could fly over anytime that they want, but they don't do that because he hates confined spaces now. It's kind of a sad story. Because it would benefit us if they were able to come over more often, have grandma work with Asher more often. But my son, Asher, he loves confined spaces. If he finds like a little cabinet and he fits in it, he will just close himself in the cabinet. Or like I've numerous times now, we're like, where did Asher go? And then I go and I find him and he's hiding in the closet upstairs, like in the linen closet. And I remember doing that sort of thing as a kid too. But I don't really like confined spaces anymore. It's like I grew out of it. Not that I would say that I'm afraid of confined spaces, but it certainly, I don't think I would put myself, if I was on a submersible, okay, I could maybe see myself getting on a submersible and expecting like a 90-minute trip or something like that. But the one that they got on, that sounds like way too risky for me. I don't know. It's like, it's really hard to criticize because we all do risky things at some point in our life, especially when we're younger, right? Like I remember So my backyard has multiple tiers. Like it has a retaining wall, but it's like two sets. Okay, there's like a I would say a 6-foot level and then another 6-foot level. Okay, and then there's the middle level, and on the middle level, the neighbor has a tree on the other side of the fence, and his tree is so big that it just comes over into my yard. So, a few years ago, we had like just absolutely insane wind over here where I live, because we live by a canyon, and the wind just comes out of that canyon when you have like a storm way out there that has a bunch of cold air that's like stuck up in the air, up high in the atmosphere. That cold air will, when it hits the mountains, that cold air will like come down and swoop through the canyons, and you get really strong hurricane force winds. And a couple of years ago, there was one where it was enough that they had to declare the area a disaster zone and stuff, like the whole city was just trashed, right? And so like the day after the main one, the main storm, it was still windy for a couple of days after that. And so my neighbor was like, we got to do something about a couple of these tree limbs. So he got a ladder, like a really, really tall ladder, and his saw, and I held the ladder, and he got up on the ladder and cut a couple of limbs off. And it was like blowing, it was windy. And like the thing is if he fell off the ladder, he probably wouldn't have just fallen off the ladder. He probably would have like landed, hit the rock retaining wall, and then fell another 6 feet after that. So like it really was like if he fell, would have died, you know. But it was okay. He did it. He got up there. He cut the branches and everything. And when we were done, the wind started picking up a little bit more. And then we really were like, you know what? That was actually a really dumb thing to do. I'm watching that video get retweeted. Like, I bet that is kind of like puts the whole thing in perspective. Like, but at the same time, I can totally see people like billionaires getting in and thinking like, oh man, this is so sketch, and just laughing and joking about it and getting in anyways. Like, we have an underwater hotel in Florida. I believe it's just a lake and it's only 30 feet. And I wouldn't even do that. Oh, it's 30 feet in the ocean. Oh, I think I've heard of that before. Yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds super cool. Okay, so we had another little shove lower. I would say maybe some stops, but like the cumulative deltas on it weren't super high. And actually there is some pushback. So I'd say it's really hard for me to judge how this is going to go. But there still seems to be flow out there, yeah? Hey, Yasmiel, how are you doing? The new NT platform now requests your... Oh, that's so annoying. Wait, are you talking about NinjaTrader Desktop 8.1? Or which version are you talking about? Oh, you can turn that off? That's a useful thing to know. What were you up to? No secret projects. I studied for the Series 3 while I was on vacation. I'm gonna need to do some studying on the weekends, but I think that it should be a fairly simple thing to get. Like, going through that book, I'm kind of like, why don't more future traders get their Series 3? Are you going to turn on Powell's speech? So the opening remarks we already have. Oh, we might turn it on later. I don't know. We'll see. When I start hearing stuff on my news squawk, then maybe we'll switch over. How about that? Because sometimes I feel like when I put it on my stream, then if I like talk over it, that I'm like, you know, you would rather just watch the Powell thing. And So I only do it when it's like really the thing that we're going to be primarily focused on. So Powell is going to be testifying before Congress. So we already have they already released rather their prepared remarks, and then Congress will be able to ask him questions. Usually not a whole lot comes of all of that, but it still is like a widely watched event that drives flows and so forth. So when you get 5 people in this sub, it doesn't seem like it could fit 5 people from certain parts of the world that have lots of process. Yeah. It is like, so are they like shoulder to shoulder in that thing at the bottom of the ocean? It's, the whole thing just sounds awful. The whole thing just sounds awful, huh? I got another thing. Oh, I need to ask because somebody said they might have the data that we need to get, like the volume profiles for the last 5 years or whatever. But it's like a really huge data set, so I need to like set things up so that I can get that data set from them, and hopefully I can like do all of that work before the weekend so that I can make that video, because I was planning on recording that video this weekend. They're kind of the wonder if the market maker's messing with us now, because it's kind of been getting a little sketchy down here. $250,000 to be in a tank with no escape. What could possibly go wrong? So what we're saying is that the reason this story is interesting is because it seems like such a terrible idea. Is that what we're saying? Some people have more money than comments. Well, everybody does dumb things, right? I don't want to be, because like, here's the thing. Someday I'm going to go out, I'm going to do something stupid, and it'll be on the news, and then they'll go through with AI. Every live stream that I've ever done, they'll find this stream and they'll have me talking about how, you know, oh, those people are so stupid, etc., etc., etc. And then, you know, I did something dumb, right? So I probably should just not say anything, right? Because there's certainly been times in my life where I failed to exercise discretion properly. What's the dumbest thing? Well, most of them were when I was a kid. I think the worst one was when I was a kid. We were told not to go to the construction site next door. So, of course, that's where we went. And I got stuck in the basement. And so we tried to climb out the window well. And I jumped up and there was a metal bar in the wall. Went right in my leg. And they told me that they put like 200 stitches in it. That was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me. Okay, so there was another big order at 29.5 and they pushed through it, and now they're dropping down a little bit again. You're still using 8028? Sorry, which one am I on? There was a newer version. So they've been making updates to the older version. So, oh yeah, no, 8028 is what you want to be on. Yeah, okay. Of course. I don't want that W web platform log on screen. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. Any news? Well, Powell is giving his opening remarks before Congress at the moment, Alfredo. Might have missed my chance there, man. I'm just gonna get out. Paid for the commission, so it was basically a scratch. There was a point at which I could have gotten 10. Think I might have. Oh no, I wouldn't have gotten 10. I would have gotten 9. I probably could have taken 5 there, but it was only available for a brief moment. And they may go lower, but I'm a little bit concerned about holding this too long because Powell is going to be speaking, right? I can see S&P 500 is tanking really hard all of a sudden. That could bring in some buying flows. So I'm just, it was kind of coming into, wasn't really getting the kind of flow that I needed to stay in that trade. I only use my PC for trading and I have my entire trading setup auto run on startup. It'd be annoying if I couldn't do that anymore. I think they'll eventually force it into you. Well, they of course they will eventually force it into you, but probably at the point at which you're truly forced to go to the newer versions and all of that stuff for NinjaTrader. It'll be so far in the future that probably not very many people will care, to be honest with you. Like, probably by that point, I'll probably be fully on Jigsaw, for instance. You know, like, that's the sort of thing where, like, they support it for a couple of years, and then their metrics show that nobody's using it anymore, so they... Or who knows, maybe enough of you guys continue to use the older version that they say, hey, this isn't working, let's go back to the old system. Because our users hate it so much. I really appreciate their new mobile implementation, though. It's really cool and needed. Well, I think that if you want to swing trade, that being able to go mobile would be important, right? Companies haven't really been displaying a trend of caring what their customers think. Well, not if they have financial incentives. But I'm not so sure that the login method actually is a incentive for them per se. I haven't used NinjaTrader's mobile platform. The Iron Beam mobile platform, I think that could totally work for you to manage a trade, like manage a swing trade on the go if you needed to. Seth, this financial juice is pretty cool. Thanks for the tip. Live action, I don't understand how you could be watching me as long as you have and only just now try financial juice. If the 24 of you that are watching right now, if you've never loaded up financial juice before ever, you should go and check out the website, because even if you don't pay for their $100 a month live service, you can still listen to it delayed. So it's still worth visiting. It's literally my homepage, says Uzi. It's hard. In terms of like I have the affiliate links down at the bottom. I only put that stuff in there because those are the things that I think are going to help you the most, right? And if there was anything that I think could help you the most down in there, it's going to be financial juice. So I'd like to promote it as much as possible. Of course, I know that it's expensive, so not everybody's going to do that. But I mean, it's a lot cheaper compared to alternatives, but it's still $100 a month. But I really, honestly, kind of look back on my time where I traded before having a news squawk, and I don't know how I did that. Because I use the news squawk so much to catch good trades. Excuse me. Like, I don't get how I traded before that. But I don't know. It's like kind of one of those things. There's lots of that in trading where you'll look back at the way that you used to do things and be like, what the hell was I thinking? Right? Well, there's been a little bit of like downside there, but like, look, they are eventually coming up here. So I think that, you know, scratching there, maybe I could have gotten a tick or two more, but scratching there was the right decision. Like ultimately, I got the move that I wanted, and there just wasn't very much in it. I should have gotten out earlier, but that's okay. That'll happen. That's kind of more up to luck, I think. And we could continue to see flows. It wouldn't surprise me to see the treasuries like bounce all the way back up here, especially if like Powell says something significant. Yeah, Powell is speaking. I think he's still. Oh, actually, I don't think they've started yet. But he is probably, you know, I don't think they've started yet, but then he's going to deliver his opening remarks. So I think it's still going to be a little bit before you'd get any kind of headline from him. It's not a submarine. About an hour and 45 minutes into the dive, communication between the submersible and its mothership, Polar Prince, ceased. I guess if you're going to spend $250,000 to get on it, you would want it to maybe be an hour or two. So maybe the time was not crazy. But that kind of makes it worse because you weren't planning on being down there for many days. If OceanGate was a public company, oh boy. Gillard says he didn't get. Oh, you're talking about the you were trying to go short at 05 half, you never got it. Yeah, I gotcha. So when you had said 05, that was when it had come back a little bit, and you were hoping that it would come back and fill you. I hear you. Well, you know, a lot of this downside did kind of come out of nowhere, wouldn't you say? Let me recenter things here real quick. What would need to happen for UST micros to become a decent product that traders actually trade? Well, so I think it is a decent product, but to get it more popular, I mean, there is activity on it. I mean, you can see the volume profile. There are people out there trading it, but for it to be popular, I don't know. It may be possible that some YouTuber like myself or something like that becomes really popular and a bunch of people flood into the market trying to trade it. That's always a possibility. But I think larger overall, there probably need to be a little bit of an attitude change among people. Although, you know, you can trade it with multiple contracts. I kind of feel like, you know, if you come in and you're trading it with multiple contracts, it does what you want to do. And it would be great for like swing trades and for spread trades. And it puts these kind of spread trades as a more realistic thing for a retail trader to do. So I think that there's a lot of reasons for it to trade, and people just don't realize it, you know, which is good. That means that there's edge available there that people are sleeping on, right? But I don't know if it actually ever will become super popular. It doesn't necessarily have to be, as long as it does the job right. I do think, though, one of the things that is holding the micro treasuries back, and probably a lot of retail trading activity on the CMA, to be honest, is the fees are just too much, man. Like, when you factor in that you're probably spending $30 to $50 on your platform, and you're spending $30 to $50 on the data, and then you have to pay a tick in commission for like every trade. Like, it's super expensive to trade this way. It really is. And so Robinhood is going to have futures trading. So futures trading is probably going to become more popular. But in order for futures trading to really take over as the primary vehicle for intraday traders, as it probably should be, it probably needs to get cheaper. Right? So most of these people, it's actually kind of funny because to do intraday trading, get around the pattern day trading rule, you have to have 10K in your account, right? But most people are just not willing to pay upwards of $100 a month just to trade. Commissions 20 years ago were a killer. Well, sure, but 20 years ago, you and I probably wouldn't even be trading at all, right? It would probably be out of reach for us. To start, at least. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. But no, my understanding is that Robinhood is creating is becoming its own futures clearing merchant, is my understanding. Oh, is it 25K? I'm sorry. Yeah, why didn't I think it was 10? I don't know. I remember there was this one influencer that I thought she had okay content. You know what? When I'm on TikTok and I come across somebody that I really like, I don't understand why. I really don't understand why. There are some people that just something about them. Everybody wants to connect with them, and I don't know what it is. Right? But there was this one girl that was on TikTok, and she kind of had that personality. Like, everybody wanted her to be successful, but I was watching. I was like, she has no clue what she's doing, right? But she was doing really well, as everybody was at that time, because it was like the big 2021 boom and all that stuff. Or sorry, 2020 and 2021 boom, right? And so she was like, oh, we're going to have a big live stream when I get to 10,000 in my portfolio, or was it 25,000? I don't recall. I think it might have been 25,000 because then you would be in the pattern day trader rule, and they never got there. They never got there because like they were a great content creator, but they didn't really know how to trade. And I think they basically gave up on it. Haven't seen them since. I haven't seen them for a long time. And I did see them doing one video, but it wasn't related to trading. I'm surprised that Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't on the submarine, considering he was also a billionaire. Seems to have the perfect profile. Well, none of those people were... Okay, there was a Pakistani businessman and his son, a 77-year-old French explorer, and a British businessman. And then Stockton Rush, the CEO. That makes it even worse. You're sitting on a submarine, probably shoulder to shoulder, next to your own excrement, and a 77-year-old man. It's so awful. And it wouldn't surprise me if at least, maybe there's still somebody down there, but like maybe some of them have died and stuff. Like, oh man. We need to come. What were you guys calling it earlier? I'd like to use the funniest and yet most politically correct description of it as I could for YouTube. Oh, I misunderstood what you were saying, Mr. Seth. Come to Forex? No. I don't think you'll ever see me trading Forex. I really don't think that Forex is a fair game, generally speaking. There could maybe be a situation where I felt like I knew something, but I don't see myself doing Forex. You know what I do kind of see myself maybe potentially doing in the future, though, is trying to run more of a hedge fund-like portfolio. I think that I need to get the portfolio a little bit bigger before I start trying to be really active with those sorts of things. But I was reading, what was it? What is it called? I was reading the book More Money Than God. That's what I was reading. Oh my gosh. So this was so interesting. And I think somebody on the stream talked about it before, but when I read the book, I was really like amazed by it. Is like the first real hedge fund pioneer, let's call him, did not really understand why he was successful in his time. So like when he started out, he thought that he saw trends and that he would be able to ride trends. So basically he thought that there was some technical analysis and that he was going to make the money off of the technical analysis, right? And at the end of it, he said, well, I was wrong and it didn't work, right? But they still made money, and they made money hand over fist. And how did they do it? Well, some of the things that he did that were truly innovative were like, he would measure the volatility of the stock compared to the stock index and modify how much money he put at risk in that asset based on that. So he was basically using beta and alpha metrics like 30 years before it was a thing, right? And then the other big thing that he did was like, he would have the brokers would call him, and then he would pay the brokers a performance fee, like based on if their trades did well, then they got paid more. And that's where his edge came from, right? But that's not what he thought. It's certainly not in the beginning. And so it's this kind of this crazy thing. Like, genius rarely understands itself in trading. Some of the most successful people don't actually understand why they're so. And I've had many experiences where I got the opportunity to speak to somebody who had some success, and I go into like what their strategy actually was, and I was like, oh, they don't actually understand why they're making money. And if it stops making money, they won't understand why it's not working. Why was I talking about that? Oh yeah, because you said to go into Forex. So anyways, I was watching that, and they were explaining how the original setup worked. That, you know, they would go long certain stocks and they would go short certain stocks. And because of leverage and stuff, basically ends up that you make more money by taking on less risk. And the only key is you got to pick the right stocks. And I'm like, I can do that. So I want to get more into that sort of thing. So I think at some point I will kind of turn my non-tax advantaged account into more of a hedge fund sort of a thing. But that might be a couple years off. And I think there's still a lot of strategy research that needs to be done there. My niece babysitter for my sister's friend is $1 billion. Okay. I don't know if that's a joke or if you're saying that you could set me up. I would love to interview a hedge fund billionaire. You know, we haven't talked about this in a while, but I think that when we interviewed Gary Norton, that went really well and that people really enjoyed that. And I would like to do more interviews. But if I'm going to interview people, I really have to be like serious people. I think that a lot of the times the people that are given the spotlight in the trading world are not really worth talking to. But, you know, like hedge fund managers, that would be super interesting. Or some of these big, I wouldn't call them big, but, you know, the leaders in the quantitative finance space that are putting out papers and stuff like that. I want to talk to those people. And I would be willing to do Grady as well, yes. I'd be willing to do Grady as well. Although I don't know if interviewing Grady would be as interesting. Well, maybe not. I think if I was going to interview Grady, I would be
I would ask him more about like crazy things that have happened while he's been trading. I wouldn't say that I hate Grady lately. I mean, it has really nothing to do with Grady, right? It's just I'm frustrated that the larger trading world isn't more interested in empirical research. And there's many people, cause to me, guys like Grady, Futures Trader 71, who else we got? Sorry, the Italian guy. Maybe, and I would say Jim Iorio, he fits in that category as well. No, I feel so stupid now that I can't remember freaking names, but you know, it's been off a week, right? Anyways, I kind of view these people as like the lead influencers in the futures trading space, and I don't foresee myself ever necessarily being like considered more authoritative than them or anything, okay, because they've been doing it a lot longer than me and have a lot more experience than me. But I just frustrated that I don't hear them talking about the empirical research. That's all. Navinder, oh, I would totally, dude. If I don't think that Navinder would ever sit down for an interview, but if I could get an interview with Navinder, I would be so down. If any of you ever know him or know somebody that knows him, or get a chance and ask him if he would do an interview, that would be amazing. That'd be amazing. And you tell him that I would not be as interested in the whole drama, him getting arrested. I mean, we can talk about that if you want, but I would be much more interested in hearing about how he traded and his experience and stuff like that. Right? Apparently he works for the government now. Oh, that's interesting. Common sense doesn't require empirical evidence. Well, I'm deeply skeptical that you can make a ton of money trading futures with just common sense, but maybe a giant whale swallowed the sub. Okay. I think even a blue whale would not want to swallow something like that. Like, it could probably fit its mouth around it, but it wouldn't want to bite something that big. So it looks like a small fish. Yeah, I think for a lot of those larger traders that like hearing about their individual experiences is more interesting. Because like I said, again, genius often doesn't understand itself. So, and in the case of Navinder, you know, his edge was getting eaten away, right? His edge was being eaten away. So even though we want to understand how he traded, what's going to be the most useful information for the retail traders, I think, probably have more to do with his individual experience. Okay, so I am hearing some Fed comment headlines now. Nothing too out of the ordinary or anything like that. I don't think that the market's really moving on it. It says that the pause and then the higher dot plot is entirely consistent. The level for rates and speed for rate hikes are separate. And see, this is the action. This is why I got out. Is I didn't want to be involved in this kind of action. Like, I could still be in this trade and be at break even, but I think I'd be awfully frustrated, right? Really, though, I want to talk to Jean-Philippe Bouchard. That's who I really want to talk to.
It wouldn't be enough just to talk to him one time. It would be like, let's do a whole month-long sabbatical and shadow him. I would love to do it. That guy is just, he knows so much. He's so smart. Apparently November was too much. Well, no, it was that he was essentially scalping the book, and the robots were beating him, and that's why he started spoofing. This is like, well, you guys are playing all these dirty tricks on me, so I'm gonna do shit back. It's understandable why it happened the way he did, and he just kind of ended up getting scapegoated. And then on top of that, he apparently was, you know, he gave his money to these hedge funds that blew it all. So, hey, look, there's the move down. So again, I hate being in a trade when there's like a live speaker. So I'm okay missing this down move, but it is worth noting that it has ended up being a down move. And I think there's a good chance that they break new lows. It could be exciting before we leave here today. Yeah, I was really hard on him at the beginning because I was like, well, what you did was illegal and you knew what you were doing was illegal and you deserve it. And I do kind of hate spoofers, but within the context, I do think I understand why it happened, and I do feel that he was unfairly punished, yeah. But, you know, it's probably one of those like catch me if you can stories. Like in the end, he's probably better off and becomes even more successful than before because of it, right? So I think it will work out for him in the end. And I just really hope, because I know that he's kind of a little autistic and he's a private person and everything, but I really hope that he speaks to the wider trading community and teaches us some of his experience. Because I think that he might have some valuable experience to share. Notice how no one knows where he is, etc. He's working. Isn't he? I thought he was still on house arrest. I don't really know. I need to get a new keyboard with macros. Okay. So the keyboard world can be really complicated, and I think the reality is that there are just like dozens of different places you can get good keyboards from all price ranges, and they all do the same thing and they do a good job. So if it has the keys that you want and the size that you want, then you're probably okay. One recommendation that I would make though is if you want to have macro keys, consider getting a mouse with macro keys instead. They make these mice that have like 9 buttons on the side of it that you can press with your thumb. Those are really useful. And if you can set trading hotkeys to those, I think it's better than having macro keys on a keyboard. I don't know. I still wouldn't have gotten 10 ticks, but I could be getting out at 5 right now. Kind of looks like they had that little dive and they're maybe trying to push it back up. We'll see if they succeed or not. Still a little iffy. Fat finger mistakes though? I don't know. I never had any problems when I was using it. I primarily did it for a puke button. I'm a little disappointed. I'm wondering if they're gonna go to a new low, and I'm gonna sit on the sideline here. That's how I used to roll Battlefield 2 back in the day, 5-button mouse. You know, we never talked about. Did you catch this whole thing with the Call of Duty streamer tweeting about this protest over LGBT stuff? Basically tweeted like, "Leave the kids alone." And so Call of Duty decided to remove his bundle from the store and all that stuff. And then a bunch of other streamers like Dr. Disrespect and other people in that community all left too. Yeah, I was watching that whole thing and I thought the whole thing was just absolutely crazy. I was a little excited. I was like, oh, is this the end of Call of Duty? Could we maybe play a different game now? Because I've never really been a fan of it. And I feel like that the video game industry has stagnated. There hasn't really been much significant movement. Like the last two major games that we had in the gaming industry was Apex Legends and Valorant, right? And that's in the last 3 to 5 years. Those have been like the only significant releases. Okay, Powell is talking about stablecoins now, so. It really says a lot if leave the kids alone is transphobic. Well, yeah, so let me get into the philosophy here a little bit, because I think that some people are being really naive about what the issue really is, right? So humans' great invention is storytelling. That's people, you know, in cartoons and everything, they always treat it like it's fire. It's when humans invented fire, that's when we really became different from the animal and became the dominant species. No, it's storytelling, because storytelling allows us to relate experiences between each other and between generations in great detail. And that's how we're able to, storytelling goes into teaching, and then that goes into being able to learn things like advanced math and build generation upon generation of stuff. Okay. And what has happened is in Western society, we decided to specialize towards just whatever was the most successful, right? So we use capitalism, and whatever generates the most capital is what the system rewards. And that's how the West has been able to be so successful, so much so that culture is basically percolated out into the rest of the world. Okay. And at the heart of that is meritocracy, right? We reward people that are doing good work and are producing value, essentially, right? But in the end, it's storytelling, because your brain is like a neural network, right? And what are you training that neural network on? Well, the culture, the society is kind of this shared library of information that we teach everybody and incorporate into your neural network, essentially, right? And what has happened in the last 100 years or so is that we've started to become more consciously aware of this. Like, we've been aware enough about it throughout human history to progress to where we are now. But it's in the last 100 years, we've started to go like, oh, okay, like I can actually come in and try and make changes to that society and change the base network that everybody's functioning off of. And should we do that, and what should be the nature of that, and so forth. And so the whole argument has been that there can be ideas embedded into the culture of the society that is the basis for everybody's neural network that could have societal imbalances baked into them. That's really what that's about, right? And I think to some extent they're correct. There could be things baked into the society that could result in inequalities of some sort. I would say on the issues that they're talking about in particular, I don't know if it's really quite what they say, but there's definitely, we need to be aware that there could be biases built into our society that we might want to change. Okay. But the question is, how do you go about doing that, and you know, what is worth changing, and so on and so forth? This is a very complicated question, because we don't really completely understand the system that we're dealing with here, right? So we don't know how those changes are really actually going to come about, and like what is an effective way to carry out those changes, right? But some people have decided that the society is unjust, and that we need to force it to change, right? And not moreover that the government is a way that we can force societal change, which is really what progressivism is, right? People think progressivism is like we need to progress as a society. That's not what it is. Progressivism is that the government is an effective source driver of that cultural change, right? That's what progressivism is. Okay. So what's going on here is now they're going out and they're looking at all of the demographics and they're saying who is doing well in our society and who is not. And then they're furthermore saying that anybody that's not doing well, it's because of inequities baked into the culture of the society. Okay, which is not necessarily true. And you can't prove, okay? Because some people may have habits, they might have subcultural values that are working against them, for instance, right? And so there can be a lot of reasons why an inequality may exist, and it can't always be boiled down to racism is embedded in the culture, right? Okay. So if you believe all of that, though, right, that these things are embedded in the culture, then how do you change it? Well, these are all things that you learn as kids. And that's why they're coming after the kids. It's 100%. There is no coincidence about it. They want to teach your kids certain things that you disagree with. They are trying to create a basis in the social network that we all function off of and kind of use as a basis for how we interact with the rest of society. They want to change that. And the way that they're doing that is they're trying to push it through stuff at school and training the kids. And so, a lot of these people, they're interested in teaching the kids these things, even though they don't have kids themselves, which is a little bit scary because I trust me, guys, you really don't understand the world until you've had kids. Okay. You're a different person after there's like chemical changes that happen. And you're a different person after you've had kids. Okay. So I'm deep, like, I don't think I could see myself voting for a presidential candidate that doesn't have kids, hasn't been married and had kids. That's my own personal thing. Okay. So yeah, they're trying to change it, is essentially. And one of the things that drives the left is essentially their experiences when they were in high school, where they didn't like something in their high school culture and they felt oppressed by it, or they couldn't change it, or like their parents didn't want them to have premarital sex and they just disagreed, right? And so they feel that they should intervene on behalf of these kids, essentially. And that's what's going on in the transgender debate, essentially, is that they're saying that the parents shouldn't be making decisions like that because the parents will suppress the kids and will not raise the kids in the way that they should be raised. They'll raise them with trauma instead. And so the school should be protecting the kid from the parents. They're not going to say that so explicitly, but when you really look at what they're saying, and especially what they're doing, that's 100% what's happening. And that's a little scary. And I'll tell you why it's a little bit scary. Because of how they're trying to do it. Because their solution is essentially anybody that's been oppressed should just be given something. Essentially. Like what they're trying to condition into people, especially when you look at like movies and media over the past like 5 to 10 years, is they're trying to condition kids to be like, oh, if there's an inequity, I should give those people that have been disadvantaged something, and then they'll be successful. Okay. It directly opposes the very thing that has made our society so successful: meritocracy. Meritocracy, logic, empiricism. These are like the core values of a Western society that have moved us from the Bronze Age into the modern age. And these people are directly trying to tear them down. That's scary to me. Not just for the implications that it could have to your children and their potential success in life, but the implications that it has for like the whole society as a whole. Because I tell you what, you go over to China, that's not what they're teaching. Okay, they're not teaching diversity. They're teaching you work hard, you be effective. They understand that it's a competition between societies, and it would be a very bad thing for the world if we lost that battle. Right. AI has mapped the entire mosquito neural network brain. AI is now working on mapping the human brain. I wouldn't doubt that they've been able to like map all of the nerves in a neural network of a mosquito, for instance. But my understanding is that like when you look at like nerve cells and stuff, we don't completely understand what it's doing. Like when it receives a message, why does it pass a message on sometimes and not? Like what kind of like computational processing is an individual nerve cell doing? We don't understand how it does that. And in fact, many people hypothesize that there is quantum computing sorts of things going on there, which I actually kind of sounds probable, but we don't really know. I don't know a single progressive that isn't the same person they were in high school, still angry about the same things to some degree or another. Yeah, it really is. Well, I think the thing that really keyed me into that is when you look at the issues that they actually support. Because many times the left will support certain issues that don't seem to really make sense. Like really, it's like what they support is not completely in line with their goals. That it's like, okay, if you really wanted to make people more successful and to have, improve the quality of life for everybody in America, you wouldn't be doing these things that we know don't result in success. You would be teaching people the things that the way empirically results in success, right? So what is actually the real key driver behind them? And when you really get down into it, progressives tend to support me getting what I want right now when I feel like it. Right? Everything is geared towards you being able to practice pure hedontism and never have to suffer any consequences from it. That's what it's all about. And I feel like a lot of this stems from that they wanted to do things in high school and they couldn't. Hedonism is the way that it's pronounced, isn't it? Have you noticed I do this all the time? Like I read so much. I don't get as much daily interaction with people. And so there are some words that I misread and I don't actually know how to say. Like I read the word all the time. I might use the word myself in writing all of the time, but I don't know how to say it. It happens to me all the time. Because the people that I talk to on a daily basis don't use words like that. Anecdotal. Yeah. Because it's totally spelt like anecdotal. You know what? I should put that down as a word. I have a list of words that like I'm supposed to practice how to spell. There's always those ones I before E except after C ones. Those always trip me up. My wife still can't say pancakes? Really? Okay, let's see here. Where's my word list? Yeah, I'll make a new one. It also comes up, I tell you what, it's one of the funniest things as on TikTok if I mispronounce something. Like when Silicon Valley Bank got blown up, I was saying it was silicone instead of con. And everybody was making a big deal out of that. Like, okay, who cares? Ocean Gate employee fired after safety issues. Pancakes and lanterns. Oh. Well, that sure shot up quick, didn't it? So this I did not see this one, man. Look at this. Look at the cumulative delta in the end. That is definitely not what I thought was going on, right? But in the end, the cumulative delta in the treasury has been long this whole time. And eventually they broke it to the upside. I guess it's only been like that the last hour or so, but like when we were right here, I really didn't think that it was going to be like that. Yeah. It probably did. There probably was like serious short covering off of that. Because I'm sure that tons of speculators like myself were getting on hoping for it to trend, and then they just kind of got stuck in the mud and didn't go anywhere. Like there was some. So again, part of the reason why I got out was like there was a flow to the downside. And then I wasn't really seeing the aggressive selling anymore, but I was seeing some kind of like rebalancing flows where we were starting to look like we're getting stuck in a hole, right? So I get out, the rest of them don't, and meanwhile there's actually they're meeting into some buying down in here. Then yeah, eventually you can see some people cover, and then you end up getting a fast move, right? I think your resting order. Well, yeah, you really need all of the above, right? You need all of these pieces of information to really understand what's going on, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, is that everybody just looks at price, and it's not enough data to understand what happened, right? When we're watching it live, we can understand a little bit better. Okay, here was the flow came in here. Here was an area where there was low liquidity, high liquidity, etc., etc., etc. But you definitely still need cumulative delta, because market orders, the sign of market orders, whether the market orders are buying or selling, is the most effective technical indicator we get of informed flows, right? If I see a huge spike in cumulative delta in a certain direction, that's a good indication that there was like news or something, or that there's a consistent imbalance between those buys and sells orders. Very often ends up predicting the ultimate direction in contradiction of what the price seems to suggest, right? So and you can't see that necessarily from the resting orders. The resting orders just tells me what the liquidity conditions are, how easy it is for them to wiggle around in that area, essentially. So you need all of this information to understand what's going on, and then on top of that, you need to have some sort of way of predicting the future orders, and so that you can read all of that information and see if that information is in line with what your scenario was. So it's kind of all an essential part of the puzzle, really. Which is why, frankly, it makes complete sense that retail traders had such a hard time kind of sorting that out for such a long time. It literally took them well over 100 years for the empirical researchers to figure it out. So, right? I want to get back on a political rant, but yeah, because we were talking about the Call of Duty thing because you talked about Battlefield. Yeah, so with all of that in mind, yeah, are they coming for your kids? Yes, they are. I wonder what the cultural implications are here, though. Right? It seems like support for these kinds of ideas are declining because, as I've said, meritocracy and bad ideas can't compete on the field of meritocracy. Of course, they can compete if they're appealing to people, but if they're appealing to people and they're doing them active harm, they don't, those ideas eventually they die out, right? And I see kids starting to rebel against it. Okay. Of what age? Because it seems to me that the kids in junior high and high school are like fully engrossed in it, but that's maybe just because one of my kids is. Usually high school. Interesting that we're now back to 112.31, but the 30-year came back up a little bit more, and so we're only at 3.77 in yield instead of 3.777 like we were. If it comes from a position of authority, they rebel. Oh, I see. Like that incident where the school was having a Pride Week and the students like tore down the display. Yeah, I totally get what you mean. It is a really bizarre thing that it keeps happening in modern culture, that you have this group of people that they're acting like the rebels and they're actually completely backed by the establishment. And true rebels there aren't really true rebels anymore, I feel like. Because when I was in high school, there was definitely rebels, and they tended to be liberal, Our generation are in charge of the messaging and censorship efforts that what we knew as the religious right in the 90s were in charge of, and our generations are forgetting how we reacted to it. Wait, let me read that again. I'm not sure if I understand. Our generations are in charge of the messaging and censorship efforts that what we knew as the religious right in the 90s were in charge of, and our generations are forgetting how I gotcha. We're doing the same thing that the religious right did in the 90s, and we already have forgotten how bad that was for the religious right in the 90s. Absolutely. I have to take the same thing with my kids. Is like, I can't just come in and be like, okay, you can't talk to gay kids anymore, and all of these things. Like, my approach has been to like give it as little attention as possible, Well, it's really like a larger, I don't know. There's this larger thing going on where it's like, how much can governments really control the narrative? And it seems to me like government and media can have a really strong degree of control. It kind of seems like that as they increase their control, they're losing more control at the same time. It's and I'm really not sure what the end result actually is, because that makes it hard for me to tell which way it's actually going, because I thought for a long time that freedom of information was winning, and then Donald Trump got put in office, and I was like, oh no, that's not the case at all. Right? Oh, there's actually a lot of people that are totally okay with all kinds of censorship and narrative controlling if it's what they want, right? If it supports their cause, they're totally okay with it. But and then there's this thing that kids are just like prone to rebel. Like it's like programmed into our DNA that when you're a teenager, you don't listen to your parents, to think that your parents don't know what they're doing. Right? And I find it so striking how people are just like completely ignoring the things that I feel like we learned as millennials. Like it wasn't that long ago and it all happened on the internet. Like we all saw it, and yet the kids don't have any clue, right? Like I'm constantly seeing these kids on TikTok that are like, what if we implemented this one policy and then like everything would be great and everybody would be happy? And I'm like, yeah, okay, when I was your age, they told us those sorts of things. And they did a lot of those policies, actually. Obama did them. And it's a complete disaster. And all of this stuff that you're complaining about, like the high cost of rent and the high cost for education, are all because of those ideas that those people had. It was a complete disaster. And every time that a politician comes out and tells you this is the solution to all of your problems, they're full of crap. Because the world is more complicated than that. There's not easy solutions anymore. We solved the easy solutions, you know, in the early 1900s. Now it's complicated problems that we have a hard time understanding, and the systems that it's impossible for us to gather all of the information in one spot to really even understand what's going on. And yet the kids are falling for it even harder than the millennials did. How is that possible? Or simply put, we're trying to make kids be like us. Check their response. Having to enter your password each time is a purposeful security feature that we've implemented in the new NinjaTrader desktop. Does it at least save your username? Because I mean, like when I need to log into Fidelity, I have to enter my password every time, right? I guess it doesn't necessarily bother me having to enter my password in every time. But it's just the way that it shifts over and the way that it's not compatible with what you had before. Right? Like I can't switch between different keys, and I can't use my demo key that gave me rhythmic and stuff like that. Right? That's what I don't like about it. Well, while your password is too long and impossible to remember, yeah, well, because you're gonna have to change it. So here's what you do. This is not the right way to do it, but it's the easiest way for me to find something. Okay. Password generator words. Okay. You have to be sure that you're using a website that can't possibly steal your stuff, right? Anyways, you can make one of these ones. Okay. And it will use like random words like speech, young, plain, Linux, right? That's something that you can remember and can be really long and will be like really secure. Anyways, I gotta get going, guys. I lost track of time. So I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.